So a very good morning or good afternoon to you wherever you are in the world. My name is Joe Iverson. I'm the FSA manager at Sci Platform. I'm joined by Eric Harris from Shore Harvest. Shore Harvest are a consultancy that probably many of you know. They work very closely with us and are in particular helping us on this project, the FSA EU Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence module, of which this webinar is about. I'd like to also extend my thanks to my colleague Jess Dubert, who's helping me out behind the scenes and will moderate any questions that we have for today. In terms then of the ground rules, I'd like to ask that you all please remain on mute throughout the duration of my part, which will be 25 minutes, and then we will have plenty of time for any questions that arise after that. But by all means, feel free to post your questions in the chat as and when they come to mind, and Jess will make sure that we get to those once the kind of the formal presentation is out of the way. And just so you're aware, this webinar is being recorded. So if that doesn't sit well with any of you, then I suggest you leave now. So the purpose of this webinar is to divulge more on the work that Sci Platform and in particular the FSA is doing in its efforts to help user companies comply with the EU Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence module, or EU CSDDD, as I will now refer to it as. This is something that, to be honest, it has been quite forefront in terms of our thinking and our strategy for probably the last year and a half or so. And with that, I'm really delighted to now be able to share our thinking and our ideas around that module with you, our wider FSA community, and really want to spell it out what it is we're doing here, and really call on your support as well to help us with this module, and in particular with the development. So before I get started, we do have the Sci Platform antitrust caution statement to get through. So if you'll excuse me, I will just get through that very quickly. So Sci Platform meetings and events shall not result in any discussion, activity, or conduct that may infringe on its part or on the part of its members any applicable competition law. By way of example, members, when in organized Sci Platform sessions or in private while in attendance at such sessions, shall not discuss, communicate, or exchange any commercially sensitive information, including information related to prices, marketing and advertising strategy, costs and revenues, trading terms and conditions with third parties, including purchasing strategy, terms of supply, trade programs, or distribution strategy. If any member has any question regarding the legality of proposed discussion, the subject discussion should stop immediately and not resume until the facilitator has raised the issue with Antitrust Counsel and obtained permission to proceed. Okay. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with Sci Platform, but for those that might not be, just very briefly, we're a membership organization of now almost 190 companies working in the food and drinks industry. And our vision is for a sustainable and resilient agricultural system that regenerates the Earth's resources, elevates farmers' livelihoods, and drives food security. And as I said, we're at almost 190 members now, and these members transcend really the global food and drink value chain. And I think one of the key things that makes Sci Platform such a special place is that all of these companies here that you see on the screen are all working collaboratively to help us achieve that vision. So now just one slide on the background of the FSA and a little bit about the purpose before we get into the main topic of today's webinar. So for those of you that don't know, the FSA has been around quite a while now, well over 10 years. I think the first iterations were back in 2012, 2013, something like that, when the side platform membership got together in order to create a global reference framework for on-farm sustainability for crops. And that is exactly what they did with the FSA. In its very simplest sense, it's a set of 109 sustainability questions that are on farm, that are farmer facing. But as many of you know, it's so much more than that. There's a benchmarking system where we've benchmarked the FSA to many other different sustainability standards out there. There's optional third-party verification. And I think most importantly, whatever we do in terms of the FSA, we always have the purpose well and truly in our minds and in our thinking, and that is really that the purpose is to drive relevant and demonstrable continuous improvement of on-farm social, environmental, and business performance through supply chain collaboration and fostering a common understanding of sustainable agriculture. So much like Site Platform as a whole, really focusing on continuous improvement and harmonizing relationships and understanding between different value chain actors. So that's all I'll say on the FSA more generally speaking. For those that perhaps are a bit more new to the FSA, we do have a very good website and an excellent learning center. So if you do want to find out more, I suggest you go and have a look. So in getting to the topic at hand, and that is the EU Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence module that we are building in the FSA. I think Joe Rushton, our program director, spoke about this briefly on a program update webinar before the South Africa General Assembly meeting. But really, the purpose of today is to give you our community of practice and our usership oversight of exactly what it is that we're doing, what the opportunity is for the FSA, the role that we see the FSA playing in due diligence, practically speaking, what we envision the module will look like, and those all important timelines, and as equally important, how you, our community, can get involved and influence the module's development. Now, when we were a few months back talking about the development of this module, a few questions, and really good questions we had, were why focus on the corporate sustainability due diligence and not other EU legislation like the deforestation regulation? And I think there's a simple answer to that, and we believe ultimately the FSA, and the way it's designed, is best positioned to be able to respond to the EU CSDDD. The EU CSDDD is also much more wider ranging than many of the other regulations out there, and it fits well with the FSA as being globally applicable on all farms across all crops. And so that's kind of why, or a bit of the background as to why we've started to develop this module. As so a little bit of the kind of the background and the context here, right? So as some of you may well know, the EU CSDDD has been a good number of years in the making, and I think fortunately for the planet and for the future of food production, the legislation was formally adopted by the EU Council in May of this year, and essentially it puts forward a corporate due diligence duty to identify, prevent, end, mitigate, and account for adverse human rights and environmental impacts in a company's own operations, its subsidiaries, and I think key for us in the FSA community, their value chains as well. And over here on the right, you can see it applies to all EU companies with 1,000 or more employees and 450 million or more euros in turnover. But critically, it also applies to non-EU companies with more than 450 million euros in turnover in the EU. Now, by our estimates, that equates to more than half of the side platform members, and yeah, in essence, a large proportion of the FSA users. So for us at Site Platform, it's really kind of a no-brainer that this is a space the FSA should operate in, and it's a fantastic opportunity for the FSA. If we look down here, the timelines. So as I mentioned just a moment ago, the legislation enters into force in this year, and then member states have until 2026 to integrate that into their own regulatory frameworks. 2027, the largest companies that are in scope must start applying and complying, sorry. And then from 2028, other companies that are in scope need to start complying. So I think the message here is that the timing of this module, it's good. It's at the right time. We are being proactive, and we are on top of things. So in terms then of the FSA, it's strategically placed to support adherence to the module, to the EU CSDDD, for what we think are a number of reasons, and you can see them here on the screen. So the FSA is already embedded within our members' supply chains. It already plays such an important role in helping to scale responsible business practices. As I've already mentioned, I think twice, it's universally applicable, and yeah, applicable across all crops. And one of the key things as well is that it engages farmers and other supply chain actors in continuous improvement. And I think another important point, it's trusted, it's reliable, and it has a strong reputation among site platform members. And I think certainly last, but certainly not least, we kind of the background to this was that we asked ProForest, I think it was in the summer or the early autumn of last year, to conduct a scoping exercise or a benchmarking exercise to see where the current FSA overlaps or how strongly it aligns with the EU CSDDD criteria. And it's fair to say that there's strong overlap. If I can recall correctly, I think almost 60% of the current requirements in the FSA are completely applicable to the EU CSDDD, which is great. I think that already gives, or it should give, users reassurance that they are making good headway with regards to the regulation. However, what that benchmarking exercise did tell us was that there are some gaps, and we have decided by means of discussion amongst our steering committee and amongst our Xcode site platform that it's a great opportunity to build a module around these gaps that were identified in the benchmarking report. So I think it's also important to focus on, or to discuss, the role that we believe the FSA should play in terms of due diligence. And for that, we need to look at what the EU CSDDD mandates as a whole, from a kind of a systems or a process perspective. So in a of course, a simplified sense, there are 6 different elements to it. 1, the company adopting a policy. 2, the company identifying risks in their supply chains, in their own operations. 3, having systems and measures in place to prevent, mitigate, and end the risks identified in step 2. 4, establishing a complaints procedure for affected peoples to voice their concerns. 5, monitoring the effectiveness of the due diligence measures that have been put in place through steps 1 through to 4. And then 6, communicating about the due diligence work, both in terms of public communications, but I think also in terms of communications that might be made available to regulators. And highlighted here in green, steps 2, 3, and 5, that's really the role in which we see the FSA acting. The FSA, as I've really tried to kind of drill home, it's all about engaging different supply chain actors in a journey of continuous improvement, something that our system does really, really well. And I think it's very well suited to these particular steps here, because they ultimately are about, they're about identification, engagement, putting in place a plan to mitigate or to change, and monitoring that, something that companies using the FSA are doing anyway, just in a slightly different guise. It's worth pointing out that when we launch our complaints process for FSA letters of attestation, there will be some coverage under number 4, this complaints, the establishment of a complaints procedure, but that is a to be or something for later on. So I've mentioned this word module a few times, and you might ask me the question, Joe, why not just embed the requirements into the FSA as it is? And there are many reasons, but I think 3 strong overarching reasons as to why we have chosen not to do that. The first one being that not all users will need to comply with the legislation, maybe not at all, or maybe not straight away, or in some cases the risks might be low, and so you might not feel the need that you need to. A second one, a more kind of a technical one, was if we think back to this benchmark, the scoping exercise that Proforest did for us, the EU CSDDD relevant criteria in the current FSA are spread across the essential, the intermediate, and the advanced level questions. So ultimately, if we look at the FSA's performance levels, bronze, silver, or gold, there isn't really an obvious way of pegging the EU CSDDD to one of those performance levels. It's tricky. If we really wanted to do it, it would mean making FSA gold level kind of synonymous with the module, which I don't think is feasible nor practical. And the third one, another practical reason, but this time playing more into the way in which the FSA is designed and developed. When we develop the FSA, we follow ICEAL guidelines, and that means, as I'm sure some of you know, there are quite robust requirements in terms of governance and procedures and so on, which doesn't lend itself so well to when you need to act quickly and respond to change and demand from your user base, which is what we're doing here. And so that naturally lends itself to a modular approach, a kind of plug and play approach, where we can adapt more frequently and we can get on top of things in a quicker way. So now I'm going to show you practically on a high level, of course, because work is very much underway as to what the module will look like. So in terms then of how the module will work, very much like the Regen Ag module in the FSA, which I know some of you are familiar with. It's going to use the FSA's existing systems. And what we will do if we kind of follow the FSA user journey from left to right, we're going to update the priority screening tool to bring it that bit more in line with the EU CSDDD. And for those of you that maybe don't remember what the priority screening tool is, it's essentially a top-down analysis tool that's done by the Farm Management Group Coordinator, and it's done once for the whole FMG. And basically, in its current guise, it's used to zoom in on which particular FSA topics should be prioritized in terms of going into a continuous improvement plan. Now, we believe that it's relatively straightforward to kind of not repurpose, but to adjust the use case that slightly to also zoom in on whether there is a potential EU CSDDD risk in a given supply chain, and whether or not, well, depending on the outcome of the use of the priority screening tool, it might be that no, there's no risk, in which case you follow the normal FSA implementation process that everybody is here, I think, is familiar with, or most people are. But if there is a risk, then you would follow this this implementation process here. I think it's probably worth mentioning before here, we haven't quite scoped this into the system yet, but we are also looking at ways to see if we can also utilize the work that we've done on country risk here, which is currently only used in FSA legislative benchmarking. So for those of you that know the system well and use the FSA, you'll know we have a list of countries in which we allow legislative benchmarking, and a much bigger list of countries in which we don't allow legislative benchmarking. And so what we're also considering in this step one is how we can utilize that work to maybe also, just as an example, so as to say, okay, if you're sourcing in X country, you perhaps don't need to use the module, but if you're sourcing in Z country, you do. But that is still very much kind of a working process. But let's go back then to the diagram, and you'll see, yeah. So if we've done the priority screening tool, we see that the EU CSDDD risk has been highlighted. Then you, as an FSA user, will follow this route. You will do the standard FSA self-assessment questionnaire in the normal way in which you apply the FSA with an FMG, and the farms that are chosen as parts of the farm self-assessment sample will then also do the on-farm EU CSDDD module. So much like the FSA, it's a set of yes or no farmer-facing questions. We have a first draft already, and it's going to be around 20 questions, I would say. It could be 3 or 4 more. It could be 3 or 4 less. It's still a work in progress, and we will come on to that, the element of work in progress, and how you as users and members of the community practice can get involved soon. But taking this then, much like the just following the normal FSA implementation route, users will have the option of having the process third-party verified, and then ultimately using the inputs of the priority screening tool the regular 109 questions of FSA 3.0, plus the module questions, using those as input for a continuous improvement plan, therefore identifying EU CSDDD risks and mitigating them, because naturally the farm management group will implement and hopefully have great success with that continuous improvement plan over time. And I should say, actually, just on that last slide, the kind of we are still working on the claims, what exactly they will look like. We have a few ideas, but we are still kind of weighing up the pros and cons of each. So on then to the current slide, and this slide, it's really here to tell you, the audience, you, the FSA community practice, what the module will and will not do. And I think it's really critical here to say that the module will not facilitate compliance per se. And that is because we're not becoming an assurance scheme. We're still going to use the same self-assessment and verification process that we've always had in the FSA, which is set up for due diligence and continuous improvement, not certification. And following that approach, it will not mean that company complies with the law per se. However, it will, and that's because the scope of the EU CSDDD goes beyond the FSA system. However, the module will allow users to identify EU CSDDD risks in their supply chains. It will use the FSA's existing systems by incorporating the identified risks through the module into the continuous improvement plan. And it will allow users to ensure that they are adhering to addressing farm level risks through the optional third-party verification. So I think, to summarize, the module, it won't be the only way to comply, but it can be done outside of the FSA system. But for those of you, those companies that are using the FSA, of which there are many for which the FSA is embedded within your supply chains, I think this offers, or will offer, a fantastic, structured, industry recognized framework that is clear to communicate and I think critically communicates well with the existing approach of the FSA, and it's something that is strongly focused on the FSA strengths, which are continuous improvement and stimulating and driving supply chain dialogue. So on then to the timelines. So we are essentially here. It's August tomorrow, and in the first half of this year, we finalized the gap analysis report by Proforest. We had a lot of internal discussions and debate between our different stakeholders, our steering committee, our executive committee, but ultimately we decided to move forward with this module. On the let's say the practical side of things, the module team will be made up of, well, the site platform secretariat, our steering committee, but then also some experienced consultants that we've hired. Those are Avamandis from De La Tierra Consulting, who has designed the first draft of the on-farm module. We have Shore Harvest, who are here on the call today, and will speak just in a moment, who are helping us particularly with the public consultation, and you'll hear more about that in a moment, but also very importantly, helping us to write guidance for the module, to update the FSA implementation framework, and they will also lead the on-farm pilots, which are scheduled to take place a little bit later this year. And the third consultant that we've hired who makes up the project team is Louise Horson from Sustainable Balance. She is a familiar name for those close to the FSA. She's been working with us for a long time and is a bit of a guru on assurance. So that's where she will be supporting us, for example, writing audit control points and audit guidance for the module. So this is kind of a rough timeline of some of the key kind of actions or activities or deliverables. So in August we will have a public consultation on the on-farm module design. September will really be about incorporating the learnings from that public consultation into the on-farm module, and also really ramping up the writing of the guidance, kind of moving into, it's looking like late October, November. We want to have on-farm pilots of the module, and that is, that we always need to pilot something before we launch it in the FSA system, because we can sit around and debate things for hours on end, but ultimately it needs to be practical, it needs to be auditable, it needs to be understandable on farm, which is why those on-farm pilots are essential. And then I suppose something for the diaries. We aim to launch the module at the end of the year, end of December. That's it for my part now. I'm going to pass over to Eric Harris from Sure Harvest. As I mentioned just on the last slide, Sure Harvest are helping us with a large number of the tasks in relation to the development of this module, including the consultation process. So hand it over to you now, Eric.
Great, thank you, Joe. And hello, everyone. I'll keep my part of this brief. I have this slide here. As Joe indicated, Sure Harvest will be working together with the SCI platform Secretariat team on the consultation process, which is kicking off tomorrow for the month of August. And the goal of the process will be to get feedback on a lot of what Joe has outlined today on the content of the module. So that's the 20 or so new questions that form part of the CSDDD module that could be appended to the normal FSA questionnaire as part of the CSDDD approach. And then also elements of implementation. Joe described that incorporation in the priority screening, adding the module questions on through self-assessment or verification, including reference to CSDDD in the continuous improvement plan. So all of those are parts of the implementation, and our goal with the consultation process is to get feedback from SCI FSA users and members on the proposed approach to ensure that it's meeting FSA user and member needs within the scope of what Joe outlined of how the FSA can be adapted to address CSDDD. So the plan is this coming month, we'll have an online survey, and we're also looking for participants for interviews, one-on-one interviews. And then in fourth quarter, as Joe outlined, there'll be the pilots, on-farm pilots. So for all of those things, the online survey, interviews, and on-farm pilots, we'd be very grateful for anyone who'd be willing to participate and provide feedback. As always, with the materials developed for FSA, and SCI platform as a member-based organization is always better for getting more feedback from the membership and the user base. So Joe's name is up there. He's being volunteered to get, if you're interested in participating, you can reach out to him. I think that's everything for me.
Thank you so much, Eric. Well, that brings us kind of to the end of the planned part of the session. I believe we have 25 minutes to the hour, so plenty of time for questions. I don't know if any came in. I can't see because I'm full screen. Jess, do we have questions?
Joe, I don't see any in the chat, but maybe if anybody has any questions, they can unmute themselves and or put in the chat, whatever you feel most confident to do.
And maybe then a question from me. In terms then of the, obviously it's a high level outline that you've seen here, but I'd be interested to kind of get the sense of any any initial reactions to the approach. Does it make sense what we're doing and how we're aligning the EU CSDDD with the FSA? Have you seen other standards perhaps that you as a company used taking a similar approach? Yeah, interested to hear really. That's really what we are, as Eric said, the next month, the month of August. That's really what we are aiming to do. It's to incorporate as much feedback, as much of your wisdom as FSA users into the module as possible.
Martin wants to know, this is the first CSDDD module he's seen. So I suppose I hope that means that it's an encouraging start for you, Martin. If this kind of aligns with your expectations around the FSA as well.
Yeah, maybe just a comment there. That was kind of also the feeling that we had, that this is kind of the first, or one of the first modules that ultimately a farm sustainability standard is building. But we have kind of sense checked our approach with iSeal, with ProForest, and obviously quite a number of the members that are involved in our governance. And there was, yeah, we've had very kind of strong support that this is the direction to take the program in.
Gail has asked, thanks very much for this useful info and process. Interested to better understand the specific areas where there are gaps, so the 40%, which the module will be developed around.
Well, to that question, I would say that a lot of it is based around human rights. So some of the different UN declarations. There are also some very quite specific questions to do with labor rights, and yeah, one or two environmental based questions, but it's mostly on the mostly on the human rights, and a couple of questions on labor. If you like, Gail, or if you're interested, I'm happy to share with you more detail. We of course have the report that outlines the whole gap analysis process. So yeah, if you like, I'm happy to share that with you. And that goes for anyone else.
Gail will reach out. And then Antonia also asked, so getting insights into tier 1 supply chains won't be easy for many companies. Could the module also be useful in cases where farmers are not tier 1 suppliers?
So I would say that much like the FSA as it is, that a farm level relationship will be needed to implement the module. So in cases where farms are not your immediate suppliers, I think it will be very much mirror the case that there is a need to ultimately go along in the supply chain, find that first level off taker that has the relationship with farms, and enable them to implement the FSA, and then of course the EUCS triple D module, and then let the information flow along the supply chain, much like existing letters of attestation.
Thank you, Joe. Maybe just if I can build on that question. So essentially what we're saying is that the implementation is not going to be any different to the current model that the FSA uses. And any kind of claims that you want to pass on around this module need to go through the same approach as the FSA. Is that right?
That is exactly right. Well surmised, Jess.
Okay. And then Irene, thank you very much for this. Is FSA considering collaboration with other working groups like AIM Progress that are highly focused on HRDD? I know they are working on a HREDD tool for tier 1 suppliers.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I would, on the AIM Progress point, we have been in touch with AIM Progress, and we are aware of what they're working on, but we feel that it doesn't fully align with our approach, so we will not be kind of partnering with them on it at this moment. But we make the point to stay in touch and to be open to collaboration in the future.
Thanks, Joe. Are there any other questions? You're also welcome just to unmute yourself if you feel comfortable doing that. By the resounding silence, we assume that you are all very impressed and you're all very thrilled with the approach that we're taking here. But I know that Joe is also very happy to hear any feedback once you've digested all the information, and and you're welcome to get in touch with the FSA team with any other questions as well.
Exactly, and we will of course, like every site platform webinar, be sharing the recording, in due course. So those people, particularly that weren't here, are able to view the webinar. So yeah, I guess with that, if there are no more questions, we can close for the day. So yeah, thank you all so much for attending. We hope that you are happy and encouraged by the approach that we are taking. Yeah, and as Jess said, any questions, comments, concerns, you can feel free to reach out to me. So yeah, thank you all very much, and I wish you a great rest of your day. Bye bye.
Thank you.